Hello all, Rick here. So in my continuation of looking into different universes of Star Trek, I thought I'd look into the alternate future of the Next Generation finale, The All Good Things, to see how that universe unfolded and if it was ever an actual timeline or something created by Q purely for Picard. The first thing to highlight is that while Q was making Picard jump between different time frames, the events that happened in those times were preserved and prevented from influencing the other times. In this way, Picard could fundamentally alter events prior to encounter at Farpoint without changing the present and future he was also working in. This is likely an effect created by Q in order to allow for the solving of the temporal incident Picard was faced with, and therefore the future we witnessed is not the product of events of the show. Instead, this timeline is the natural progression of events if the finale of All Good Things had unfolded without the anti-time rupture or Picard retaining his memories of the interaction at all. For a start, in the anti-time future of 2395, the Romulan neutral zone was collapsed, along with numerous accords and treaties tied to it when the Klingon Empire invaded. Relations with the Klingon Empire have since soured by 2395, and while we do not learn the exact reasons behind this, it's possible that the Dominion War and preceding events still occurred. This means that the Empire was manipulated into turning on the Federation and the dissolution of the Khitomer Accords. However, considering they are not at open war, clearly the Dominion was rebuffed, but in the after-war landscape, the Romulan Empire fell to Klingon opportunism, while the UFP and Klingons managed to re-establish some semblance of a treaty. In this future, the Klingon Empire has benefited extensively, while the Romulans are diminished. We hear no mention of the Romulan Supernova, and instead, their homeworld is still present. This adds fuel to the conspiracy brought up in the books that the supernova was an artificial one, considering there was a point where it was not guaranteed to happen in 2387. No supernova threat means no evacuation fleet, which means no Mars synth attack, no Jean-Luc Picard retiring in protest, and everyone's careers being markedly different. Another notable variation is the fate of the Enterprise D. In the Prime timeline, the Galaxy class falls over Viridian 3, 2371, in the battle against the Duras sisters, before being recovered and reassembled as a museum piece for the Athen Prime Fleet Museum by 2401. The ship in the anti-time future continued to operate as the Federation flagship until 2390, and had received several upgrades to maintain it and keep it one of the most powerful ships of the fleet. We don't see many other Starfleet ships except for the USS Pasteur, so we cannot confirm if the Sovereign class exists, but it's likely considering the Dominion War would probably have still occurred. Either way, the Sovereign class that would have been the Enterprise E would have launched as the USS Honorius or Sentinel as originally planned, while the 1701-D was adapted to the Galaxy X class and assigned to Starbase 247 after its time as a flagship came to a close. Such tech additions included the Phaser Lance main cannon, the addition of a third warp nacelle to rebalance its warp systems for faster travel, and a cloaking device. The cloak was permitted with the dissolution of the Romulan neutral zone, and the third warp nacelle seemingly mitigating the warp speed limit thing, while the speed of warp 13 revealed a rebalancing of the warp scale, removing 10 as the maximum attainable. So the Galaxy X program may have still been envisioned at some point, but was never implemented as far as we have seen in the Prime timeline. Nor was the warp scale reinvented, with alternate warp capabilities becoming more prominent like Slipstream and Proto-Warp. The Olympic class existed prior to the divergence in timelines, however, as we have seen it in 2370 in later shows. On a superficial level, we have a uniform that never came to pass, although elements of it did emerge into the Prime reality. From the wraparound tunic to the badge being almost the same. Instead, the tip retained the delta edge but had the same asymmetrical bars for the backing. So, on to the Picards. That's right, plural, as Beverly and Jean-Luc were married in this continuity. We don't know when this happened, as they were divorced by 2395, although still amiable. They did not have a child together, so no Jack in this timeline. This means that Beverly was less incentivized to leave Starfleet to protect him, so instead she remains, eventually heading to the USS Pasteur medical ship. Picard left Starfleet to become an ambassador, before retiring altogether to his vineyards as Irumodic syndrome progressed. Considering the worse state of relations with the Empire in this universe, just saying that Ambassador Picard might not have been the optimal position for Jean-Luc at this time. In the Prime timeline, Picard accepted promotion to Admiral to head the evacuation plan from Starfleet in 2381. This also means that the supernova's origins must have been between 2370 and 2381, and that some butterfly effects of the Enterprise crew, knowing the anti-time future, went on to snowball into JJ blowing up Romulus. Maybe a plot was originally foiled in the anti-time future that was not in the Prime. Or maybe they just didn't have that plot line in mind 15 years before Star Trek 2009. Oh my god, it's been longer than that between 2009 to now. Data did not die in the Praetor Shinzon incident, or if he did, we're dealing with a replica in the anti-time future. In this continuity, he had mastered the emotion chip and allowed himself to age up a little while taking the Lucasian Chair of Mathematics at Cambridge University. In the Prime timeline, we can see that he utilised the emotion chip in 2371 and kept it until 79. Again, his existence dictates that the entire Shinzon coup unfolded differently in the anti-time future, possibly further highlighting another point of Romulan variation and making it look even more likely that Picard telling the crew of his anti-time escapades blew up Romulus. Geordi had ocular implants in the anti-time future, something that he would actually go through with in 2372. However, in the anti-time future he married Leia Brahms, while in the Prime timeline we do not know his wife's identity, but it is likely different. He did, however, name two of his kids the same, Elandria and Sydney, while their third child, a son, never came to be. The final big change is the career paths and fate of Worf, Riker and Troy. The biggest change is the death of Troy, who was with Worf at the time, leading to Riker to blame him. A schism formed between them over this and led both men to immerse themselves in their careers. Worf returned to Kronos to end up moving into an ambassador's role and eventually ascending to the High Council. Afterwards, he retired to be the governor of Hatoria. Riker, on the flip side, rises to the rank of Admiral before moving to the command of Starbase 247. Both these men would have been in positions to make large changes to the political and military landscape of the quadrants, so with them not entering these roles in the Prime timeline, it's understandable how different things may have been, probably contributing heavily to the Klingon invasion of Romulan space. After Picard's anti-time escapades, the Enterprise was lost at Viridian 3, Worf was available for Deep Space Nine, leading to his split with Troy. Troy eventually marries Riker, who becomes a captain but goes on reserve before reaching Admiral rank to Nepenthe with his family. Worf goes on to return to the Enterprise E after the Dominion War and even becomes its captain for a time before moving on to work for Starfleet Intelligence. The anti-time future is one where the Romulans were also diminished, as in the Prime timeline, only now they are under the heel of a more aggressive Klingon Empire. The Enterprise D continues on, meaning that there was no Sovereign-class Enterprise and the crew ended up on completely different places. The lack of the Romulan crisis heavily suggests the supernova in the Prime timeline was a manufactured event that was averted by the appointment of Picard as an ambassador, Worf on the High Council and Riker as an admiral, or a myriad of other appointments from people who would have had their career paths altered by the continued existence of the Enterprise D instead of its destruction. We can assume that the Dominion War still happened, as those events were inevitable since the discovery of the wormhole really, but how it unfolded may have been different, and the breeding ground for future changes that led to the Klingon Empire's rising hostility and seizing of the Romulan Star Empire. Some things do come true, such as the implementation of the Nekvar Klingon starship, Data using the emotion chip, and Geordi's eyes, Picard ending up in the vineyard, the fact that he and Beverly split in both timelines, the names of Geordi's kids and other such details. Overall, however, this is a future where relations with the Klingons is on the decline again, and while we have no clue where the Borg are at, their prime timeline machinations would likely still be around the corner the anti-time future had it persisted. Instead, it was overwritten by the end of the very episode it appeared in. But canon has radically altered things even more so, leading to some very interesting in-universe implications. I've been Rick. Thanks for watching this breakdown on how the anti-time future of all good things emerged, differed, and resolved. Until the next video, have a good winter holiday and Happy New Year. Thanks again, and goodbye.